Donald Trump is saying, if Nigeria cannot protect Christians, we are going to move in viciously, and we are going to do so to protect Christians. And I think Trump is being advised that the Nigerian government is working softly on this issue because President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is a Muslim, because Vice President Shetima is also a Muslim, and that if it were different, they would behave differently. But from where I sit, that is not necessarily the case. The situation in Nigeria must be understood from a historical context. And that history gives you a Nigeria which, when the North and the South came together, there was what could be described as the Muslim North, and for want of a better term, the Christian South, or largely Christian South. But remember, there are also other African religions, but that is the preferred definition. With the consequence that Nigeria has always had tension of one kind or another, the tension that led to the civil war in Biafra, which was not founded on Christianity at all, and of course the many coups d'etats that saw at that time in the 1960 of the killing of people like Ahmadu Bello from the north, and the imposition of the military administration. But to come to more recent history, is that there are elements within Nigeria in the north, and this came to the fore in the year 2009 with the formation of what is now popularly known as Boko Haram by Yusuf Mahmoud. When Yusuf Mahmoud formed Boko Haram at that time, there were a number of things that were defining the philosophy. And remember that the version of Islam that he propagated is Salafism. And Salafism is a sect of Sunni Muslim. And the argument was that they want to restore Nigeria to the original Islam as was practiced by the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. When that happened in 2009, of course, Muhammad Yusuf was arrested. And when he was arrested and he died in jail, he became a martyr. And that changed the complexion of Boko Haram, which means Western education is bad, if you are to render it in simplistic terms. And the whole idea, and this is what they were selling at that time, what is the value of this education where you get education but there are no jobs, there are no opportunities? And that appealed to very many young people in northern Nigeria. And that is why it is characterized as Muslims rising against Christians. When Mahmoud Yusuf died in prison and Abubakar Shekau then became the leader of Boko Haram, there were then quite a number of splits within the Boko Haram that we knew, with allegiance being declared to Al-Qaeda in Iraq and in Syria. Meanwhile, activities then heightened and they started killing persons because of their religious affiliation. But it must also be remembered that even Muslims were killed in the process. But the declaration was that we want to Islamize not only the northern part of Nigeria, but the entire Nigeria, and introduce Sharia law. But these activities were not confined to Nigeria. It was along the Chad basin, so that Chad was affected, Niger was affected, and even Cameroon was affected. But of course, the theater of action is Nigeria. The consequence of that now has been that they have engaged in activities which have led to the death of many. You remember the bombing of the UN offices in Abuja, which led to the death of 23 people. You remember the Chibok girls, when they raided schools and picked the Chibok girls, some of whom are still in custody. And when, of course, Shekau himself died, or is said to have committed suicide because there were splits within Boko Haram. We now have a situation where we have an organization which has different factions. And these factions are operating sometimes at cross purposes, and Boko Haram has been declared as a terrorist organization. And the effect of Boko Haram has been therefore to antagonize Christians. And we know that Christian clergy have been targeted. We know that churches have been targeted, and you've now created an environment that depicts these particular activities as targeting Christians. And indeed, there are Christians who have now come out and say that we are going to organize ourselves in order to resist this. But that must be contradistinguished with certain sober voices within Islam in Nigeria, who say that this is a terrorist organization, should be seen as such, and we should therefore not condemn the entire Islam. But as the saying goes, bad news spreads faster than good news. So what do we have? in the popular media, Muslims or Muslim organizations are killing Christians. What is the reaction from different people? Let us resist them. Let us resist what has been described in different quarters as the Arabization and Islamization of Africa. And this is the context in which we now find Nigeria being a point of reference from no lesser space than the United States of America. The United States of America, through the President Donald Trump, is saying, if Nigeria cannot protect Christians, we are going to move in viciously, and we are going to do so to protect Christians. And I think Trump is being advised that the Nigerian government is working softly on this issue because President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is a Muslim, because Vice President Shetima is also a Muslim, and that if it were different, they would behave differently. But from where I sit, that is not necessarily the case. And these are individuals who are known to me. My own view is that you are dealing with an organization which is out of control, which is engaged in unconventional warfare, and it's not going to be easy to defeat them because they are not your regular army wearing army uniform. They are not arranged and organized in battalions and brigades. They could be somebody who is walking in the street and propagating their agenda. They hit when you don't expect, and they hit what you don't expect. Even when you say you are going to bomb them, who are you going to bomb? Where? In which location are they crowded that you'll bomb them and finish them? These are the questions must be called into question. And you can see and hear the reaction of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and by extension the Nigerian government. They reacted by saying they welcome the United States of America to help them fight Boko Haram. That is the situation as it is. What is happening diplomatically, we may not know. But you've seen a world where there is a new hegemon who believes they are going to fight for Christianity anywhere and everywhere. That is the situation as it is now. You know, when we talk about Nigeria and we talk about the pronouncement of President Trump, many things come to mind. Number one, why is Trump saying what he's saying? Is he saying it for Christian domestic consumption? Is he the latter-day defender of Christianity? And what I'm saying is a matter of speculation, and I think he's addressing many audiences. Remember, he rode on the crest of evangelical Christians to become the president for what is now called Trump 2. And he's telling them, in this day and age, when Christianity is on the decline and Islam is on the ascendance, I am the leader of what can be described as Christianity. And when Christianity is addressed anywhere in the world or is threatened anywhere in the world, I'll be that leader in the world who will come out and defend Christianity. That is to the American audience. To the Nigerian audience, he's also saying, oh, you cannot be protected by your administration. I'm the leader of the free world. This free world, which was created by Christendom, is under threat. And I am that leader who knows no boundaries. I'm that leader who is going to be your latter-day savior. I'm that leader who is going to come and do what is necessary in order to protect you. I am the peacemaker. Remember that President Trump is on record as saying that he's the one who deserves the Nobel Peace Prize. I'm God's gift to the world. I run around the world and do only one thing, make peace. You saw me making it in Gaza. You see me trying to make it in Ukraine. You see me everywhere. You see making peace between Thailand and Cambodia. I am that person. But I am doing it because of a Christian ethic. That is my interpretation of what President Trump is trying to do. The other thing that he's trying to do is to send a message to the emerging powers or other powers in the world. He's sending a message to China, sending a message to Russia, sending a message to the BRICS world. Remember, you may make a claim to New World Order, but from where I sit, there is only one order, and that order is the order as dictated by the United States of America. And if anybody were to doubt that interpretation, just listen to him during his address to the UN General Assembly when he is disparaging the UN and almost saying that the UN is good for nothing. And therefore, the only people and the only country that you can rely on is the United States of America. This United States of America, which is great. This United States of America that has military prowess. This United States of America, which is an economic giant, the only one that you can rely on. So these messages are, in my view, coded, addressing different audiences and lending themselves to different interpretations. And when you do that, then you confuse your enemy and you become mysterious to your enemies, real and perceived. And in the Nigerian situation, I think that is exactly what he's doing. And remember that President Trump has deliberately renamed the Department of Defense as the Department of War. So it's very clear that you've got to wage war, however you describe it, for purposes of telling the world, if you don't play ball, we are going to crush you. And see, his use of language is going to be swift, nasty, and sweet. I mean, that is a contradiction in terms, but he uses language in that way. What we are saying is very interesting, and it can be defined by this age-old saying that one man's or one person's freedom fighter is another's terrorist. And you and me and all of us know that the international agenda has always been dictated by Western narratives. So that if you look at the media via which we talk about events, if it is events between Russia and Ukraine, the people who articulate it for mass consumption will be the CNN, will be the BBC, will be Deutsche Welle, will be Radio France or France, the French media, will be Fox, and all those media will be Al Jazeera, which will also be influenced by the West. And that is what mass consumption is all about. And it is the West, and particularly the United States, that has taken the burden, in their view, of defining who is who. So if you don't do what is in the best interest of the United States of America, you don't do that which is in the best interest of Western Europe as led by the United States of America, then you are a dictator. You are a dictator because you are not doing their bidding. So Russia can say that you told us we are not moving 1 inch more to the east. And when they want to protect that with boots on the ground, you are a dictator. And that is not to be compared with what happened in the 1960s when the Russians, at the invitation of the Fidel Castro government, invited the Russians, and the Americans said, you cannot have Russian military hardware 90 kilometers away from the American shoreline. So it is the bullies always have their way, and they tell you what is right and what is wrong. That is the position in which we are. You and me have recently seen, those of us who are listening to this, who have seen what is happening in the United States of America, that there were riots or demonstrations throughout the United States of America in which Americans came out and said, no kings. And what were they saying? That their president appears to be governing through fiat, executive fiat. He's fighting everybody on site. He's fighting universities. He's fighting the military. He's fighting everybody on site. But yet, in popular media, even media that is not ordinarily pro-Trump, like CNN, are reluctant to label him a dictator. Fox, of course, will never allow him to be labeled a dictator, and even Western media will never label him a dictator. But you in Russia try to do that. You in China try to do that. You in Brazil try to do that. You in Nigeria try to do the same thing. You are a dictator who ought to be removed from office sooner rather than later. The narrative is defined by the United States of America and the European Union. And you can see how quick these institutions are normally inclined towards issuing statements about things. Sometimes they don't even understand. Sometimes they don't know. But they are quick to issue this statement and that statement and to condemn and say how they are going to interfere when it serves their interest. So it is still true, as this cliche goes, that international politics is still governed by the law of the jungle and through gunboat diplomacy. And that is what is happening. The weak are dominated, the strong dominate and define the agenda. You know, when I heard this statement that the United States of America has issued a statement that if the Boko Haram continue to kill Christians, America is going to invade Nigeria, I asked myself a number of questions. Number one, in which specific territory does the Americans believe that there is a group of people called Boko Haram, so that if you send your tomahawks there, you eliminate them? Number two, Have they consulted the government of the Federal Republic of Nigeria and agreed with them that we need assistance in terms of intelligence and that therefore this will be a coordinated strike? Number 3, have you understood what Boko Haram is all about? And have you understood the history of Boko Haram and that this is an ideology? And I ask myself a foundational question. Have the Americans not learned that, as they were told by the Afghans several years ago, that you have the watch but we have the time? Have they not learned from Vietnam that you can never defeat these people who are ideologically inclined? So unfortunately, if the United States of America were to use any military means in the hope of neutralizing Boko Haram, they'll be shocked, because there is not a group of people sitting somewhere who are waiting to be bombed called Boko Haram. Boko Haram, I believe, are individuals who are embedded in families. It is an ideology. It will metastasize like cancer. So it is something that I believe ought to be rethought. And I hope that the government of the United States of America will do that which is good and right, to consult with the administration of the Federal Republic of Nigeria and ask them if they need assistance. And if they need assistance, the kind of assistance that they need. If they need intelligence, let them be the ones that define what kind of intelligence. Otherwise, this nuclear approach to killing a mosquito or killing a tortoise, as it were, is one that will be met with utter defeat and utter regret. And if there was any doubt, see what has happened to Libya. If there was any doubt, see what happened to Syria.